On our 5th wedding anniversary, my husband and I were camping up on a mountain. He hurriedly drove down the mountain the moment his first love called, leaving without even saying goodbye to me. In the middle of the night the weather suddenly turned and a blizzard broke out. My allergy-induced asthma flared and I called him countless times, but he didn't pick up a single call. I almost died on the mountain. After being discharged, I finally saw my husband who had been gone for days. The first thing he said was to discuss a divorce. He said, "Can we get a divorce for a while? Ivy has been diagnosed with cancer and has less than a year left. I want to spend the last stretch of her life with her. After she passes, I'll remarry you." To that end, he was willing to mortgage all his assets to me. I looked at the restrained, deep affection on the two of their faces and promptly signed the divorce papers. I realized Sean had gone missing 20 minutes ago. The wind howling outside the tent made my heart race. When I stepped out, the sky that had been studded with stars was now pitch black, as if the weather were about to turn. Before we left, I had checked the forecast. It had clearly promised good weather for the next couple of days. But seeing the tree trunks bent by the wind and the sudden drop in temperature, an uneasy premonition rose in me. I wanted to call Sean down the mountain right away. But after searching for a long time I found he was gone, and his phone was completely unreachable. In this desolate wilderness, had something happened to him? Before I could widen my search, the sudden drop in temperature sent a sharp chill that irritated my airways, making my throat itch and dry unbearably and my breathing a little hurried. My intuition told me it was allergic asthma flaring up. I was grateful I carried medication with me. It was only when I rummaged through the tent for the inhaler that I realized the backpack with the drugs had vanished along with Sean. Panic rose in my chest. I quickly called the rescue hotline and explained my situation. While waiting for help, I phoned Sean dozens of times, but he didn't pick up a single call. Many star-shaped lights dotted the outside of the tent, standing out clearly against the pitch-black sky. Down the mountain, the medical rescue team first sent me an asthma inhaler by drone. When the rest of the rescue team came up, they carried me down the mountain and into the hospital. It wasn't until dawn that Sean's phone finally connected. A gentle female voice came through the receiver, "Hello." I was a little dazed, only feeling that the voice was incredibly familiar. But I was too anxious to dwell on it and hurriedly asked, "I'm looking for Sean, is he there?" The woman on the other end lowered her voice and replied quietly, "He was very tired last night and is still sleeping now, so it's not convenient for him to take calls. Do you need anything? I can tell him later." "Who are you?" I asked, a little puzzled. "Ivy." "Ivy? Sean's ex, didn't she go abroad in our junior year? And how on earth were they together?" My mind went blank. I couldn't make sense of how my husband, who had been camping with me on the mountain last night and vanished in the middle of the night, could be with Ivy. Ivy said he was so tired last night that he was still asleep. My throat suddenly went dry and rough, I couldn't get a word out. The person on the other end, seeing I still hadn't spoken, continued, "When Sean wakes up later, do you want me to give him the phone so he can call you back?" I finally forced out a hoarse voice, "No need." "When did he go to your place?" There was a pause on the other end, as if recalling. After a moment she replied, "Around 2 in the morning, I wasn't feeling well so I called him and he rushed over." Her tone was calm and placid, as if answering a stranger's question. I didn't believe she didn't know who I was. At least in my memory, Sean had me saved in his phone as wifey. But, it didn't matter anymore. From the moment Ivy picked up Sean's call, our marriage was doomed to have no future. Lying on the hospital bed, I stared blankly at the ceiling. I couldn't understand how a perfectly fine wedding anniversary had suddenly turned into this. I had always prided myself on our happy, loving marriage. Though I knew he had once been in a passionate relationship and that his girlfriend at the time was our college beauty Ivy. But who doesn't have a past? There was no reason for me to keep mourning something that had ended. Besides, Sean and I got together 3 years after Ivy went abroad. Even a period of mourning should have been over after 3 years. In hindsight, I had been blindly trusting of marriage. Because of the high fever, the doctor, worried that my asthma might lead to a lung infection, kept me under observation in the hospital for 3 days. I asked a lawyer friend to help draw up the divorce agreement. If Sean wanted to go back to his first love, I had no reason not to let him. 3 days later I was discharged and went home. When I tried to unlock the front door of the villa downstairs, the fingerprint scanner kept showing failure. I tried the code as well, but it was wrong. I frowned and rang the doorbell. Sean opened the door, and when he saw me, anger immediately flashed across his face. "You still remember to come back," he said. "You haven't been home these past few days, where on earth have you been?" He still had the nerve to question me. "What do you think?" I sneered coldly. Sean faltered for a moment, as if recalling the sudden snowstorm the night we camped. He fired off a string of questions. "After it started snowing that day you came down in time, right? You should have contacted me as soon as you got down. Why didn't you check in for so many days? Don't you know I was worried about you? And where exactly did you go during the days you disappeared? There's talk online that the camping community's a mess. Were you with someone else these past few days?" His words made my limbs go numb and my head spin. I looked at the husband I had been married to for 5 years. I raised my hand and slapped him across the face with all my might. "You bastard! Get out of my sight." That slap used every ounce of strength in me. Once it landed I felt utterly drained. I shoved Sean away and staggered toward the room. But when I opened the door, the sight before me froze me in place. Ivy lounged on the sofa in the new loungewear I'd bought, lazily picking at fruit with a fork. Sean had actually brought someone home. The girl kept her eyes on the TV. "Sean, I want hot cocoa. Could you make me a cup, please?" When there was no response, she turned to look toward the doorway. Their eyes met. Ivy's hand paused mid-bite, then she composed herself and stood up. Her face was full of awkwardness. "Oh, Emma's back. Come in quickly, it's cold outside, isn't it?" I ignored her and forced myself to stop my trembling. Ivy seemed not to notice anything off about me and went on talking to herself. "Emma, you're really not loyal. When you and Sean got married you didn't even tell me to come to your wedding. I heard Sean mention it a few days ago and was really shocked. I never expected you two would end up together. After all, back then there were so many girls fluttering around Sean. I found it funny. At university, she and I only worked together in the same club, we were barely acquaintances. Even if I married, there's no way I'd invite her." Sean began to explain. "Emma and I had a simple wedding. Apart from close family and friends, no one else was invited. Besides, you were abroad at the time, would it really have been appropriate to ask you to cross 10,000 kilometers to attend our wedding?" The woman neither agreed nor disagreed, then suddenly she cried out in alarm. "Sean, what's wrong with your face? You weren't hit by Emma, were you?" Then she turned to me. "Emma, you're too domineering. You've been out all these days and not at home, and Sean has been worrying about you. How could you come back and hit someone?" At the mention of the camping trip, Sean's expression darkened further. I looked at Ivy and asked with a smile, "Ivy, are you planning to rekindle things with Sean?" Ivy was taken aback. Then, as if her lie had been exposed, she panicked and shook her head. "I didn't. You're all married, how could I want to destroy your marriage?" But her answer had no conviction. I asked on, "If you don't want to ruin our marriage, who exactly are you putting on this green tea act for?" "Who's being a green tea?" Ivy's face flushed instantly. "Sean said my health is bad and insisted I stay at your place. Do you think I'm dying to come here?" I sneered. "Is that so? You two looked pretty happy. Are you cosplay ing as Ellie and Hong Xian from Temptation of Returning Home? Were you reenacting the episode where Ellie secretly borrows Penru's clothes?" "You." Ivy's eyes turned red with anger as she flung the fruit fork from her hand to the floor. Sean frowned harshly, his voice low as he said, "Ivy and I didn't do anything. You don't need to say such unpleasant things." I raised an eyebrow. "What, just because you two can do it, I'm not allowed to talk about it?" You think my words are ugly? I haven't even said your actions are ugly. Ivy looked wronged. Emma, don't go too far. I snorted. Me, go too far? You come into my house, sit on the couch I bought, wear my clothes, and then tell me I'm going too far? Are you kidding me? Say 2 words less. Sean tugged at my hem from behind. Ivy, however, was already covering her face and crying as she ran to the bathroom, then slammed the door hard with a bang. I kicked off my shoes and walked in barefoot. Sean followed me step for step. I spun around suddenly. He didn't have time to pull his foot back and stumbled, nearly falling to the floor. I crossed my arms and sneered, so you intend to have wife and concubine share the same roof? Let the original spouse and the lover live under one same eaves? Sean took a step back, hastily avoiding my mocking gaze. What are you saying? Ivy has stomach cancer. Her husband divorced her, she has no close family back home, so I brought her here to take care of her. I was going to discuss it with you before bringing her over, but you hadn't come home for days. I froze for a moment. Ivy has stomach cancer? I pulled the discharge papers from my bag and slapped them into his face. Why wouldn't I go home? Because you sneaked down the mountain in the middle of the night and left me up there, because you took my spare asthma inhaler, because my asthma attack nearly killed me on the mountain. Why do you think I didn't go home? By the end my voice had turned into a raw shout. Sean held the hospital diagnosis in his hand, his fingers began to tremble. He thought of how, on the mountain, I had nearly lost my life to an allergic asthma attack. He remembered how, even while struggling to breathe, I had been worried about him. A surge of fierce hatred rose in my chest. I raised my hand and slapped him hard across the face. This time he didn't dodge. 5 finger marks instantly bloomed. He pressed his tongue against the cheek I'd hit, his expression pained. Sorry, Ivy had a sudden stomach hemorrhage back then. She had just returned to the country and didn't know who to contact. I was too anxious, and didn't notice that when we came down the mountain I had taken the backpack with me. By the time I realized, I was already at the foot of the mountain, so I raised my hand again and slapped him. He could have woken me, told me to come down the mountain with him. Instead he sneaked off with the backpack, drove away, and left me alone on the mountaintop. Ivy rushed out of the bathroom at the sound, positioning herself in front of Sean in a protective stance. Emma, if anyone's to blame, blame me. I'm the one who called Sean. I didn't expect you'd have an asthma attack all of a sudden. But then again, didn't you come back safe? I gave a hollow laugh. Legally, isn't attempted murder still called murder? I shouted at her, get out of the way. Sean's brow tightened. He pulled Ivy behind him. Emma, it's my fault for leaving the mountain without telling you. It's my fault for leaving you up there. Everything was my mistake. You can hit me, you can scold me, but please don't hurt Ivy, she's innocent. I took a deep breath, trying to ease the grief and anger inside me. But my hands were still shaking from fury. Ivy's face was pale, her expression completely shattered. Sean, maybe I should just stay at a hotel. I don't want you two to quarrel because of me. She turned to me and apologized, I'm sorry, Emma, but there really isn't anything between Sean and me. I hope you won't misunderstand him. What a fine cup of tea. I smiled at the corner of my mouth, watching her tea ceremony coldly. Sean glanced at me, his voice icy as frost. We each take half of this villa, I won't let Ivy leave. It was as if he was informing me. Ivy's beautiful eyes brightened a little, but she still put on a show of reluctance. It's not necessary. Emma doesn't welcome me, and I don't want you to. Sean cut her off, there won't be any problem between me and her. Just stay put. What if you suddenly start coughing up blood again like the other night? Do you expect the hotel staff to take you to the hospital? Ivy lowered her head, a little ashamed. I'm sorry, it's my fault you got dragged into this. The two of them sang in chorus and treated me like air. I pinched the web of my hand to keep my dizzy mind clear. Sean turned to Ivy at the sound and said, Ivy, you go to your room first. I have some things I want to talk to Emma about. The woman faltered, on the verge of speaking but stopping. She clutched Sean's shirt hem tightly. Don't fight because of me. I can move out anytime. Don't worry, she and I won't fight. Be good, go back to your room first. Sean soothed her patiently. I weakly closed my eyes. Waves of nausea churned in my chest. Ivy kept looking back as she climbed the stairs to the bedroom. When the door upstairs clicked shut, Sean turned to me and said, Emma, I want to discuss something with you. I clenched my teeth and said nothing. Sean went on, could we get a divorce for a while? Perhaps afraid I would refuse, he hurried to explain, Ivy's condition is pretty serious, she might have less than a year left, which is why I brought her home to take care of her. I looked at him coldly, waiting for him to finish. You know, I had a relationship with her in college. Back then I promised to take her to do many things, but because I was still studying and money was tight, most of it never happened. Now that her life is ending, she came back to fulfill her last wish. I want to accompany her to fulfill those old promises. Sean stammered through the words. Then there was silence. A long, long silence. I almost thought my ears were failing me. I never imagined I would hear such an absurd, preposterous reason for a divorce in my lifetime. Sean, seeing that I hadn't responded, grew a little anxious and said, Don't worry, I'm only helping Ivy fulfill all her wishes and staying by her side like family. After she's gone and I've taken care of her affairs, I'll come back and remarry you. It turned out that when a person is utterly speechless and furious, they laugh instead. Was I some kind of pathetic person? Was I expected to cooperate with his devoted care for his ex-girlfriend and then stand there like an idiot waiting for him to return? I don't agree, I said, cutting him off decisively. Although I had already drafted the divorce agreement, seeing the man's eager expression before me, I suddenly changed my mind. Sean faltered. A woman's voice sounded from upstairs at just the right moment. Sean, don't do anything rash. I won't accept the proposal you brought up before. She leaned over the second-floor railing and called down, Emma, don't listen to Sean, he's just worried about my health, but I don't want to interfere in your marriage. I'll move out tomorrow. I snorted. Not wanting to interfere, but hadn't she already interfered? Downstairs, neither Sean nor I responded. But Sean seemed to have made some kind of decision. When he spoke again, his tone was cold and distant. Emma, our divorce is only temporary, at most 2 years. As compensation, I can give you 10% of the company's shares. My voice was colder than his, and I enunciated each word. I said, I do not agree. A mere 10% of the shares. He is my husband, my beloved of 3 years. That kind of feeling costs extra. I packed some clothes and toiletries and pushed my suitcase, ready to leave. Sean blocked me at the door with hatred. He shouted at me, Where are you going again? You just came back and already want to leave, who on earth is out there? I said, We're only getting a temporary divorce. Ivy doesn't have much time left. Can't we help her fulfill her last wish? I snorted lightly. Her wishes all have to be fulfilled? If she wants to go to the moon, you'll send her there too? Sean rubbed his hair in irritation. The thing is, her wish is only that I honor the promise I made to her back then. That's something I owe her. I said sarcastically, I had no idea you were such a man of his word. If you owe her that, why did you break up in the first place? He paced back and forth. Emma, I've always thought you were a reasonable person. I never expected you'd be so cold and heartless, quibbling over things with someone who's dying. What are you so upset about? He unleashed one thunderbolt after another at me for Ivy. I watched him grow increasingly agitated with a cold gaze. I don't care about your past. In any case, I won't agree to a divorce. If you want one, sue me in court. I thought for a moment, then added fuel to the fire. By the way, I won't admit that the marital relationship has broken down, and I'm also the innocent party. If you want a divorce, it won't be that easy. The lawsuit will last at least a year or more. Sean's mouth opened slightly. Then he pleaded, "We're only getting a temporary divorce. After fulfilling Ivy's wish, we'll remarry. If you're worried something might go wrong, I can give you 10% of the shares as a gift, and I can split all marital property with you equally." Although I got the answer I wanted, my heart still throbbed painfully. I let out a bitter laugh. I had to admit, he really did love. "All right. We're getting a divorce." The man before me finally exhaled. I pushed my suitcase out the front door. This time, Sean didn't stop me. Cold wind swept in through my collar and I shivered. A sharp ache pulsed in my chest. I went outside, pressed a hand to my chest and slowly crouched down. My stomach churned violently and I couldn't help but gag. How ridiculous. 5 years of marriage ended so abruptly and sloppily like this. I kept laughing, and then tears slipped out uncontrollably. 5 years of love had ultimately been fed to the dogs. I pushed my suitcase back to the old house where my grandparents once lived. Ever since they passed, I rarely came here. I was afraid of being reminded of them by the things they left behind. I only hired the housekeeper on a regular basis to come and clean. The furnishings here were just as they had been when Grandpa and Grandma were alive, practically unchanged. I filled a basin with water and began wiping the dust from the rooms. Only when the sun began to slope west did I collapse onto the sofa. I stared at the memorial photos of my grandparents and parents, dazed. In this world, it truly felt like I was the only one left. My parents had died in a factory building collapse when I was 3. It was my grandparents who raised me. That night I curled up on the sofa and slept deeply. When I woke my mind was still a little foggy. I sat on the sofa for a long time before I realized I was in my own home. I slipped into my slippers and did a quick wash. I stood on the balcony staring dumbfounded at the crowd doing their morning exercise. The doorbell rang. I lazily opened the door. It was Sean, holding 2 sets of papers. Heh. So eager to hand over the divorce papers, afraid I might change my mind? Sean held out the breakfast in his other hand, pan-fried buns and soy milk. "I guessed you'd gone back to Grandpa's, so I brought breakfast since I was nearby. Have some." I took the breakfast expressionlessly, and with my other hand pulled the divorce papers from his grip. "Did you bring a pen?" Sean patted his pocket, pulled a black gel pen from his coat, and handed it to me. "Emma, thank you for understanding. Rest assured, I'll handle the Ivy situation and I will properly compensate you." "Compensate me? Compensate me with what?" Guilt finally showed on his face. I ate my boiled dumpling while flipping through the property division section. The split of assets was clear. All marital property belonged to me, including the house, the car, and the stocks. He hadn't tampered with anything. I picked up the pen on the table and neatly signed my name. 2 copies, I kept one for myself. "Let me finish breakfast, then we'll go to the Civil Affairs office to take care of it." I ate quickly, even a little greedily. Mostly because I was afraid he would change his mind. Sean drove me to the Civil Affairs office. On the way, neither of us spoke again. When we registered the divorce, the staff member asked, "Have both parties given this careful consideration and do you consent to the divorce?" Sean and I both nodded. The clerk skimmed the divorce agreement briefly, then gave Sean a meaningful look. He was probably one of the few husbands who would give all his assets to his ex-wife. "This is the acceptance receipt. Please come to collect the divorce certificate within the specified time, otherwise you'll need to make a new appointment to register if it expires." Sean took the receipt and exhaled softly. He and I walked out of the Civil Affairs office one after the other. "Sean." I called after him from behind. "What's the matter?" I asked the question that had been gnawing at me, "Why must you get divorced? Couldn't you secretly support her, take care of her behind my back? If luck is on your side, I might never find out in 2 years." Sean turned slowly. His gaze was tender and resolute. "I won't let her bear the burden of moral condemnation, nor will I allow others to gossip about her. She has never been anyone's third party. My divorcing you is only so I can care for her in the name of a friend. I have no intention of getting involved with her. You can rest assured. Oh, so that's it. I thought what he said made a lot of sense. Then I could take his assets with a clear conscience. Love or money, I have to get at least one. A month later, Sean and I smoothly received our divorce certificate. The house, the car, the funds, and the stocks were all transferred into my name. I originally held 35% of the company's shares, and after he additionally gifted me 10%, my stake is now almost equal to his. We founded this company together 6 years ago. Thinking back to the early days, it was nothing short of a long, grueling battle against countless difficulties. Our startup funds were scarce, and every decision felt like walking a tightrope. Buying office equipment, leasing space, developing technology, opening up the market, everywhere we had to be meticulous with our calculations. That feeling of being short on cash is still etched into me. Only, the tree we planted together, who sits in its shade afterward, is something you can't predict. I stared at the share transfer document in my hand. I began to entrust intermediaries to break my stake into small lots and sell them off. Sean's whole mind is now fixed on Ivy. I don't believe he'll run the company well. Besides, I really don't want any more entanglements with him. Turning shares into money isn't a loss for me. The day after the new property title was processed, I put the villa up with a real estate agent. Because the house was in an excellent location and within the catchment area of the experimental primary and middle schools, buyers soon came. I had been reluctant to sell, but thinking of Sean and Ivy having once lived here made me feel a nameless nausea. The buyer was an out-of-town businessman planning to settle here and bring his whole family over. He was very pleased with the property's access to 2 school districts, and with the villa's 3 full floors plus a basement, the space was generous. He put down the deposit on the spot and told the agent to prepare the transfer paperwork. Before the sale closed, I stepped into the villa one more time, bringing along the domestic helpers I had hired. Sean was astonished to see 6 people in housekeeping uniforms appear in the house. "Emma, why did you bring so many people here?" "I just had cleaners in last week, there's no need to clean now." I didn't even look at him. With a flick of my hand I called to the staff behind me. In this villa, everything except the soft furnishings, every single personal item, get cleared out, and throw them at the front gate. Then I pointed to 2 of the housekeepers. "You 2, come with me. Help me sort my personal things." Ivy stared at me with a look that could have eaten me alive. Sean's bewilderment deepened. "What are you doing? Why do you want all the belongings cleared out?" I answered slowly, "Because I sold the house." Sean was stunned. "Why are you suddenly selling the house when it was fine before?" Ivy screamed, "This is Sean's house, what right do you have to sell his property?" I replied calmly, "This house is mine now. Whether I sell it or not is my decision." Sean grabbed my wrist and dragged me aside. His grip was so tight I couldn't help a cry of pain. He lowered his voice, "If you sell the house, where will we live after we remarry?" "When did I ever agree to remarry you?" I said, a faint smile curving my lips. Sean froze completely in place. I shrugged his hand off and kept directing the movers, moving all my belongings onto the Hualala truck outside. Sean seemed to finally react. He stomped up in front of me, furious. "Emma, we're only getting a temporary divorce." I snorted lightly. "Excuse me, is there such a thing as a temporary divorce in the law? Divorce is divorce." Sean paused, then his face slowly turned cold. He ground his teeth. "You actually set me up?" I returned his smile. "You were the one who brought all of this up, how can you say I dug a pit for you?" Sean glared at me, eyes bulging with rage, his face twisted. I kept my expression cold. "Sean, from now on you are you and I am me. We have nothing to do with each other anymore." He seemed not to expect I would be so resolute. His mouth opened and closed. In the end he didn't say another word. 2 months later, the shares in my hands were gradually sold off. When Sean found out he phoned me in a fury. Those shares were mortgaged to me. "What right do you have to sell shares of my company?" "I don't want to argue with a fool about who's right." The shares are in my name, I can sell them if I want to. That is my right. He snarled, then why didn't you just sell them to me directly? Do you know how important those shares are to me? If someone else buys them, they can gain control over major decisions in my company. Do you understand that? His roar shook the air. I tugged at my ear and said calmly, splitting and selling the shares to others was already me going beyond what I owe you. You are fully capable of buying them back from them. Sean drew a deep breath. Do you really want to ruin me? I already explained that the divorce was just to help Ivy fulfill her last wish. Do you have to make such a fuss? Even if you do, there are limits. What good does mutual destruction do you? I suspect there's something seriously wrong with his head. There's no mutual destruction here. The only one getting hurt is clearly him. I didn't want to listen to any more of his fatherly lecturing, so I hung up. After thinking it over, I added the number to my block list. Problem solved. Time flew, and months passed. When Sean and I divorced, it was the dead of winter. Now the garden is filled with the scent of osmanthus. While scrolling through Instagram, I accidentally came across an account. The profile picture was Ivy. Big data really is uncanny. Even though I deleted their contact details, I could still find them online. The latest video Ivy posted shows her kissing Sean beneath the aurora in Iceland. Even though she's wearing a loose, warm padded coat in the clip, you can still tell her face is full and radiant. Where does she look even a bit like a patient? One has to marvel at the life-restoring power of love. Sean, on the other hand, has lost a lot of weight. He looks sickly and somewhat haggard. But what does that have to do with me? I clicked not interested on that creator. Unexpectedly, Sean's company suffered a major mishap at this time. While he was traveling the world with Ivy, the company's finances had been misappropriated, tens of millions of public funds. It wasn't until the bank froze the company's accounts that he discovered something was wrong. They say the finance girl's boyfriend tricked her into embezzling company funds to quietly invest in some jade mine. Supposedly it would pay back principal and interest in just 2 months. But the man was a con. Once the money was wired into the overseas account he specified, he disappeared and could no longer be reached. The finance girl's boyfriend was so terrified he fled the country. She kept showing up to work with a stiff upper lip until the scandal broke. As soon as Sean found out, he reported it to the police. But it was already too late. Apart from putting the finance girl behind bars, there was no way to recover the embezzled funds. Sean went bankrupt. I felt a twinge of pity. Truly, life is unpredictable, like stuffing small sausages into big ones. But what made me sigh went deeper than that. It turned out Ivy didn't have stomach cancer at all, but a severe gastric ulcer. The symptoms did indeed resemble those of stomach cancer. The first time it had been a misdiagnosis. But even after it was confirmed to be an ulcer, Ivy still chose to hide it from Sean. The reason it came to light was that Sean had cared for her tenderly for more than half a year, and with the hospital's treatment her condition had completely healed. The complexion of a healthy person and that of someone with cancer, even if Sean were a fool, he could tell the difference. He took Ivy straight to Shanghai for a follow-up. After a series of examinations, apart from finding that Ivy had some gastric bloating, there were no other problems. Sean was ecstatic, even the sorrow of bankruptcy was washed away. He posted several updates insisting that late-stage stomach cancer could be cured. I stared at the screenshots of Sean's posts my friend had sent me and felt the corner of my mouth twitch. When did his brain go wrong? Or has it always been bad? I had no way of knowing. Turns of events are often the most unexpected. Not long after Sean's company filed for bankruptcy and liquidation, he actually came to ask me to remarry him. Emma, Ivy's illness has been cured, and I've been with her as she fulfilled all her wishes. Now we can remarry. I felt like my head was about to split in two. Isn't it that Ivy went abroad again to find that ex-husband of hers, and you only came back to graze this patch of grass I left behind? Although on Instagram I had marked Ivy as not interested, I was still lucky enough to see her post again. Previously, anything related to her and Sean had been deleted or hidden, the most recent post was a plane ticket to the United States, captioned, "Crossing mountains and seas to see you." Of course she wasn't going to see Sean. Sean fell to his knees in front of me with a thud. "Forgive me." "What? If I apologize to you, will you forgive me?" "From now on I'll agree to anything you say, just come back." He'd probably drunk fake liquor again. "Me come back? And then?" "Come back and remarry me, okay?" I laughed until my stomach hurt. "Sean, you don't think marriage is just playing house, do you? Leave when you want, come back when you want. What do you think you are?" Sean's face was contorted in pain. He grabbed my hand. "Ivy has gone abroad again. She won't be an obstacle for us anymore. I've deleted all her contact information." Tears welled up in his eyes. You could see he was truly regretful. I wrenched my hands free with all my strength, my expression icy. Just as I was about to launch into a tirade and point at his nose, Sean's phone rang. I glanced at the caller ID. The note read, "Ivy." Huh. Who was it a moment ago that said they deleted all her contact info? Sean shifted his body, hesitated for a long time, then swiped to answer. Maybe he was afraid I'd misunderstand. He put the call on speaker. When the call connected, he ground his teeth. "Speak. What tricks are you still trying to play? Haven't you ruined me badly enough already?" A weak sob came from the other end. "Sean, I'm sorry. I let you down. I'm in so much pain right now." Sean's face changed drastically. "What's wrong? What happened?" The voice on the other end sounded like it had been taken by someone else. "Hello Mr. Sean, I'm a friend of Ivy's. When she went out tonight she was accidentally caught up in a street scuffle and was wounded by some thugs. A bullet went through her left abdomen." Before he finished speaking over there, Sean was already trembling like a leaf. Then his legs went weak and he collapsed to the ground. Sean practically rolled and crawled away from my place. A week later, Sean messaged me. Apparently the bullet had damaged Ivy's uterus and ovaries. She would likely never be able to get pregnant again. Ivy's ex-husband abroad learned of it and broke up with her once more. A month later, Sean returned to the country with a frail Ivy. He never came to discuss remarriage with me again. Soon afterwards, a college friend sent me a wedding invitation, full of questions. "Emma, did you and Sean get divorced? How could he suddenly invite me to his wedding again, and with Ivy of all people?" I opened the invitation and zoomed in. I recognized the handwriting on it. It was all written by Sean. I remembered that when he and I got married, I had written all the invitations myself. Love and indifference were that clear. I went back to the chat and replied, "Yes, Sean and I have been divorced for over 2 years." My classmate didn't speak again. Probably didn't know what more to say. I used my savings to open a guest house near the scenic area in the neighboring city, where the local government was vigorously developing tourism. My guest house covered over 100 mu. It had a cafe, a dessert shop, a family activity center, a swimming pool, and so on. Business was fairly good. Because the design and management were rather distinctive, it gradually became a local online celebrity spot. Being very busy with work, I had more or less forgotten the past. I didn't run into Ivy and Sean again until 2 years later. On another Qingming, I went back to sweep the tombs. Early in the morning, mist and drizzle hung in the air. I never would have expected to meet Sean at the cemetery. I frowned but did not lose my temper. I had no desire to drag our messy business in front of the elders. On the way down the mountain to the parking lot, Sean spoke from behind me. "After all, it was my fault. I failed you, failed our marriage." I didn't want to hear that. Besides, it was all stale old stuff. What was the point of bringing it up again? It's already in the past. I'm living very well now, better than when I was married to you. Sean was silent for a moment, then said, "I divorced Ivy less than a year after we married because my mom objected. She couldn't accept that Ivy couldn't have children." My steps faltered, and an inevitable chill rose in my chest. This man was, as always, selfish and self-centered. "So you just sided with your mother and divorced Ivy?" My words dripped with contempt. Sean looked embarrassed. It was Ivy who asked for the divorce. Her temperament couldn't stand my mother's snide remarks. She's nothing like you, my mom didn't like her. Sean, I really despise you. If you had stayed true to yourself and kept Ivy protected behind you, I might have thought better of you, but you, honestly, you make me sick. Just thinking that I once shared a bed with you for 5 years makes me want to vomit. Sean protested, she was the one who betrayed me first. In college she broke up with me without hesitation to go abroad. When her condition improved she was the first to return overseas. To her, I was nothing but a backup. I sneered, laughing, so that's it, you two are the real pair. Breaking up like that really is something to lament. Maybe my sarcasm and disgust were too obvious. Sean stiffened on the spot like someone who'd been pricked by a needle, awkward and frozen. He said, I didn't know things would turn out like this. When she said it was late-stage cancer, I only wanted to help her fulfill her wish. I never intended to actually divorce you. I kept walking forward. How could you not know things would develop into what they are now? You just didn't expect you'd end up this ruined, did you? Sean bent over in pain, as if all his strength and spirit had been drained away. He muttered to himself, but I never thought, you really would leave me. I looked up at the sky and let out a deep sigh. I thought back to our vows at the wedding, to accompany each other for life, in sickness and in health, in poverty and in wealth. But later, who was it that first let go of the tightly clasped hands? After that I never saw Sean again. I did, however, hear about him twice. Once at Ivy's wedding, he made such a scene that it turned everything upside down, and someone filmed it and posted the video online. It was like a cycle of cause and effect, nobody ended well. Later I heard he joined a new company and, during a negotiation with a client, flew into a rage and smashed the client's head with a liquor bottle. Someone who had once stood high, how could he ever willingly bow and scrape? But by then it was no longer any of my business. The torrent of time drives us ever forward. Wheels roll on, crushing the memories that once were. We rush into different seas of people, and from then on our paths never cross again.